So you hit on that you were a soil and tech inspector. How do you think diverse background in there, and you were working construction and you did the soil and tech inspector? How do you think your time at a mid-sized firm helped you shape your leadership style and approach to running Skyline?
As I said, a mid-sized firm was great. You can reach out and touch every aspect of the company because you're not so big that you don't know the CEOs, and you also get to work with the new hires as they come in. So you get a little bit of the realities of what goes into running a business.
What if being a smaller firm gave your firm a bigger advantage in delivering exceptional projects? From closer client relationships to faster decision-making, the size of your firm could be the key to better results, if you know how to leverage it. In this episode, I'm joined by Rodney Jones, RCE, GE, Principal Engineer and CEO at Skyline Geotechnical Inc., to talk about how small to mid-sized firms can bring unique advantages in client relationships, value engineering, and project execution. Rodney's going to share how his experience at a large firm, combined with a hands-on leadership style and in-house materials testing, helps small to mid-sized firms stand out. Whether you manage projects, lead teams, or run a company, you'll discover practical ways to improve outcomes, add value, and earn lasting client trust. Before we jump in, I want to tell you about our AEC PM Connect Event. Built for project managers who want to improve project delivery, communication, and leadership through practical sessions and tools. These events provide an avenue to connect with leading PMs in the industry. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. We currently have events in Kansas City and New Jersey, with more coming. I'm your host, Fiona Johan, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump right in. Now it's time for our PM Conversation of the Week with Rodney Jones, RCE GE. Rodney, welcome to the Engineering Project Management Podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here.
We're so glad you're here. We'd just like to start off with if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and walk us through your career path and how it brought you to your current role as the Principal Engineer and CEO at Skyline Geotechnical Inc.
Sure. First, thank you so much for having me. I'm very
Absolutely.
excited to be on this podcast. I listen to it regularly. So, as you said, my name is Rodney Jones. I'm a California licensed geotechnical engineer. I graduated San Diego State University with a bachelor's in civil engineering in 2011. I started work almost immediately. Like a lot of professionals in geotechnical work, I started as a soil technician, observation, field inspection, getting in the trenches, and steel toe boots were my main uniform piece. I'd sent out a lot of resumes, and the first company that called me was a geotech firm, and I had no idea what I was getting into, but it's developed into where I am today. I progressed slowly through, as slowly as need be through that company, and eventually worked in the laboratory there as a soil testing technician, and then furthered into geotechnical investigations and running projects, and then writing geotechnical reports, which advanced me to a senior geotechnical engineering position eventually.
Wow. So you hit on that you were a soil and tech inspector. How do you think diverse background in there, and you were working construction and you did the soil and tech inspector? How do you think your time at a mid-sized firm helped you shape your leadership style and approach to running Skyline?
So, as I said, a mid-sized firm was great. You can reach out and touch every aspect of the company because you're not so big that you don't know the CEOs. And you also get to work with the new hires as they come in. So you're very intertwined in the workings. And so you get a little bit of the realities of what goes into running a business. The fact that it was mid-size meant that it was running for, 30 years before I joined. So they had their process very lined out, which was nice to join a company that had most everything figured out. Of course, everything's always evolving and moving with technology, but they were pretty spot on with how they ran things. And then also it was not so large that when you wanted to venture into a new testing method or grab a new piece of equipment, I could go directly to the owner or the boss, give my argument. And most of the time, we were able to start that new process or branch or whatever portion of the company that we that we wanted to grow and venture out in. So
Yeah, so it sounds like a mid-sized firm really helped you as a project manager build and grow there as well.
yes, absolutely. And then the amount of employees really lended to people management skills. After I got out of the field from being a soil technician, I oversaw a lot of their field process. And when they had a question, it was a chain of command, so they would come to me first. I had already gained their respect by first off learning from them, knowing what they do, what they're dealing with, and then slowly became more of a lead position for them, but still held their respect and knew how to approach them and continue to show mutual respect. So
That's great. So you really built up in a mid-sized firm. You had a lot of support. You got to learn, how it all works out. And then you went and you started Skyline Geotechnical.
yeah, so the mid-sized firm ended up getting bought by a national
Uh-huh.
firm. A great company. I ran with that for a couple of years and realized that wasn't the fit for me personally. Geotechnical engineering is a very regional thing, not just because of the geology, but because of the client interaction and what it takes to build a project from the ground up or the ground down, I guess, with regard to foundations. And, I had the encouragement of some loved ones and one of the my coworkers there, who is a geologist. We had an idea. He, over lunch, he said, I think we could do this on our own. And I said, there's nothing really holding us back but our own willpower. And so we took the leap and started our own smaller geotechnical firm, Skyline Geotechnical. And, we really haven't looked back since. So
Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training.
Yeah, that is a leap. What kind of challenges do you like that you had in building that? Do you think that turned into building a company? That's a big deal. What kind of challenges have you hit that evolved into some learning opportunities for you along the way?
so being a engineer, a geotechnical engineer, is a very technical position. And I had learned quite a few things, and I was doing what I believe to be a good job, and then jumped into a whole new world of actually running a business. So then now you get into the more heavily weighted administration, business licensing. Who knew what insurance was? I never had to deal with that. Billing and invoicing and client interaction on the post-construction end, which then again lended and gave me a great appreciation for all the people what that we call downstairs at the company I worked for before. And I didn't really know what they did, accounts receivable, contracts, things like that. And then all of a sudden I realized what all went into running such a well-oiled machine as I had worked for before. It gave me a great retrospective appreciation for them, which I had before. I just didn't know why I had it. But yeah, that was a huge challenge, is learning all the intricate gears that make a company spin. So
Yeah, and learning how to fill all those roles in a whole new way, huh?
fortunately
You are suddenly accounts receivable.
yeah, I was gonna say, fortunately and unfortunately, I wear a lot of hats even to this day. But it's fun. It's a learning experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So.
That's great. And I read that you also have an in-house certified materials testing laboratory. What role does that play in improving your project outcomes and decision making for your clients? So we've moved from mid-sized firm to CEO of your own company, and now we've got specialty tools to help your clients.
So the lab came about 8 months to a year after we started Skyline Geotechnical. We subbed out all of our lab work, a lot of it to the company I had worked for before and a couple other local companies. And it became evident that having an in-house lab would be a big advantageous step for us. You not only can get faster turnaround because you're not just a name on their list, it's your project. And so I would never, you don't want to jump in line unless, of course, the project warrants it. But, you have constant interaction with the lab techs and technicians. I'm considered the lab manager. I'm there about 3 days a week. So it's really nice to be able to go and get a second look at some soil that we obtained in the field, instead of just sending it off, hoping that the test you ran came back with the results expected. Well, if they didn't, I can literally walk 10 steps out there and grab a soil sample and assign 2 more tests to it that I know will get done properly and efficiently and quickly. So
That's neat. The in-house touch seems like it's really benefits your clients in the long run.
yeah, absolutely. And then, and I got to train, it's great to find somebody with experience, but we have a couple lab techs that started with almost no soil testing knowledge. And it's been wonderful to see them develop and then also kind of train them similar to the way I was trained, where although they aren't degreed or licensed, I kind of call them little engineers on their own, because they'll get a soil in the lab. They'll say, hey, this soil seems very plastic or have a characteristic that maybe our field tech or myself didn't see because it came out of the ground dry or something like that. And they'll say, hey, would you like me to run XYZ test on this as well? It feels like it might warrant those tests, and just having their feedback, while they're getting their hands dirty is invaluable for ensuring that we can obtain the right characteristics of the soil or known characteristics. And that lets us value engineer the projects at the end of the day for the client to, save their hard-earned money. So.
Yeah, what I heard a great leadership tidbit in there is that you're not necessarily hiring people with all the skills, but you're finding the right people and building those skills in them, which really can personalize your whole process, especially when you're running a small firm. But that I feel like that's so important when we're looking at who we're hiring and who we're getting in and training. What do you think is important? Like, what's important to look for in a person when you're like, okay, I know you don't have all these skills, but what about them entices you to hire them?
Of course, the willingness to learn, as my business partner kind of started and instilled in me, when we see a resume that has somebody who worked at McDonald's for 4 years, or a restaurant for 2 or 3 years, that is a big gold shining star. Those are not easy jobs. You're customer, client faced. You deal with real world realities of getting stuff done, moving fast. And if you can stick it out and, learn the process somewhere like that, you can pretty much fit in anywhere. It shows that you can learn, that you could adapt, and you have a certain degree of patience that it takes to work. Even at a lab that's not client facing, you're still dealing with engineers that can not always be easy to conversate with, and other professionals that are coming in and out, dropping off their samples for testing. And so, having a background at McDonald's or a job that's not very easy. The job itself might be easy, but the personality that needs to go along with it has to be adaptive. So we love that kind of personnel. And then, like you said, having somebody with no experience, you get to train them from the ground up. So you're not having to reverse bad habits. You can just try to instill a good work ethic in them from the ground up. So
That's great. I love that you've pinpointed the I always call it like the retail jobs, right? I firmly believe that everyone should do at least a summer in some kind of 100% customer facing, serving, retail, anything along that, because it just builds, like, if you can deal with the general public on a day-to-day basis for 8 to 10 hours, you can probably figure out most things.
absolutely. And my first job was at ice cream parlor. So,
Yeah.
it definitely, it broke me in. So.
I love that you see the value in that. So we've talked, about finding people, building them up. What other pieces of advice do you have for AEC leaders and project managers about leading successfully in today's industry?
You really need to be teachable and receptive and ready to learn. I work with project managers all the time that have been, in the engineering and construction field for 30 or 40 years. Some of them are stuck in their ways and, this is the way I've always done it. And then some are very receptive to not just necessarily technology, but new process methods and things like that. There's more than one way to do things right. And although they've done it a certain way for a long time and it's work, there might be a way that's more efficient, less stressful, easier on their crew. And so, I always suggest and try to become myself to be very fluid, ready to adapt and and ready to change things up. If we hit a hard stop or difficulty, you have to look at changes that can be made to streamline.
Yeah, I'm sure that serves you in your CEO role well as well, being flexible and adjustable. And there's so many new technologies every day in the AEC world. I'm slowly becoming familiar with them, and it's just every day I'm like, oh, that's a new thing that I'm pretty sure didn't exist a few months ago.
Yeah, and that's one of the awesome parts of to kind of switch gears is to having my own firm is when that new technology does come out, I weigh the cost benefits, and we go ahead and we try a lot of things that these big firms might not, because the word travels slow to get up to a position that can make that decision. And we have a credit card, so if there's something that's not exorbitantly expensive and we think it'll make our job more efficient, we go ahead and try it out. And we've rolled the dice a few times and been very lucky with our ventures into technology. So
Yeah, I guess you have to become a little more accustomed to that risk, just diving into a little bit of risk, but it sounds like it's working out.
absolutely.
So, what would you say helps you? Obviously, you're flexible in what you're able to go and explore and provide with the new technologies. You have your own in house labs. What else helps you maintain a strong client relationship? And then at the same time, you're balancing the demands of running a business and managing projects. How are you handling all that?
So I love that question, because that's one of the reasons why I was saying geotechnical firms are good regional and on the smaller side. Mid-sized firm, as long as you're not trying to achieve that large firm. I mean, it is for some people, but for a client that just saved $15,000 or $30,000 to put an addition to their house, that's their big project. That's their main news. That's what all their relatives are asking about. You know, to a geotech firm or an engineering firm, that's just one of a dozen or even more projects they're working on. But to be able to personalize each project is invaluable. We were talking about these crazy good technologies. Each one of my jobs, we open a Microsoft Notes, and we take notes not only on the project but on the people. Just little tidbits that you reflect on, and it helps you remember if you can come up with suggestions for design. So you becoming a little bit of a personal part of their project is taken into high regard with those clients that are spending their hard-earned money. They love being able to talk to an actual engineer or a professional that's working on their project, instead of calling and talking to an admin and leaving a message and then getting email. I had the other day, I checked, and I have 1,600 or 1,700 numbers in my phone. I would say 2/3 of them are clients, first, last name and their company. And then there's notes, and it's, what address their project is on, and things like that. So when the call comes in, I might know 10 Steve Phillips, but when he calls, it's ADU on Greenbrier with Wall. And all of a sudden that project comes back, it's, hey, Steve, how's that new pool and wall working? And all of a sudden you could hear an uptick in their voice that, they're calling you for the next project. But the fact that you remembered that, call them by name, you can basically guarantee you're going to get a portion of their next project and be able to help and walk them through it, which I love to do, as the geotechnical engineer. And then testing and inspection, we get to see projects from conception to finalization. And it's very fulfilling at the very least. So
Yeah. I think you hit on a point that we hit time and time again in this podcast, is that, there's project management, there's technical skills, and everyone's going to get sick of me saying it, but you have to know the people, because that is the basis of all the work, or these foundational relationships. And I think something as simple as taking notes, in your phone on details about them so that you can connect is so vital and important. And, you as a CEO, but even project managers in a larger firm, that they're interacting with these people frequently and building those relationships, you just can't skip it. Well, you can, but it doesn't serve your project or long-term relationships or benefit the company in a lot of ways if you just skip the people skills.
absolutely.
Great. Well, this has all been super enlightening. I love hearing about your journey, what you're doing, the people forward approach in your business, which is obviously serving you well. We do have one more question we ask everybody, is what's we call it the PM Pitfall question. So what's the biggest PM pitfall that you've identified, and how would you recommend overcoming it or avoiding it for other PMs out there?
So I see these issues from, like I said, I work on projects that are as small as a 200 square foot addition. And then I've worked on multi-$100 million marine complexes for the military and in every commercial project in between. And the biggest pitfall I see is a PM not being involved in the beginning and not involving the right experts. It's not just a sales pitch for engineers, but if you get a good engineering team together that are not only good in their respective fields, but also know how to work together as a team, you could be looking at some large speed bumps trying to work through those if they don't work harmoniously together. So, making sure you put together the right experts that work together well is huge. And if you don't, the cheaping out in the beginning, going for the lowest cost or the easiest, you might be feeling an echo of that bad decision throughout the entirety of a project. So,
Well, I'd say that you have a plethora of experience with all size projects, and if that's that is a common theme through all of them, we should all be listening and take that to heart.
and when that does happen, I've seen the PMs that are, there's a saying, fish or cut bait. I've seen the PMs that see the warning signs and do switch up their team. Unfortunately, you have to give some people some bad news. But although people's feelings are the most important thing, sometimes you have to realize that you might hurt some people's feelings to increase the efficiency of your team. And it's better to do that sooner than later. We have so many resources, ChatGPT, which I'm not in love with, but it works very well to learn the initial skill set and things like that for a specific engineering field. But, do a little research before you hire an engineer to make sure you're looking for the right type with the right specialty, and things like that. So, yeah, but that lends to hiring the right team by whatever means necessary. So,
We've hit on hiring twice now, and I think it's a super important piece as a project manager role and it comes back to building those relationships too. The longer you're in the industry, the more you're going to get to know people and how they operate, but feeling people out at the very beginning can be rough. But like you said, ripping off that Band-Aid, if it's not going well, we all know that a quick rip is much better than a slow peel.
Yeah, then a slow burn for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful, and hopefully we'll cross paths again soon.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aecpmpodcast.com. There you'll also find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering project management endeavors.